Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss any of our great football content this season. Well, I guess my take is I think the offensive coaching at Bama, I tend to believe that offensive coaches are tinkerers. So I think DeBoer and his coordinator, like when they went to Georgia, you're like, oh, that's a perfect game plan. I think defensive coaches, Venables, tend to have, this is what we are, and we're just going to be more forceful. I tend to think with defensive teams, you often get what you get, and you get it by like week 4. I think offensive coaches, Ryan Day is a great example last year. God, you watch the Michigan game, then a week later you watch Tennessee, and then a week later you watch Oregon, and you're like, oh shit, they didn't peak until the second week of the playoff. They're tinkers. Chip Kelly was always that. He was always tinkering. So I tend to think Alabama is just getting better. They're just, every week, I feel like they're 2 possessions better. Whereas I feel kind of like I know what Oklahoma is. I've seen the best of Oklahoma. That's very good. But I think 10 being the best, 1 being not good. I think Alabama is about a 7. I think they're going to get to about an 8.5. Now, Ohio State's at a 9, and they may just stay there. But it's why I think Bama's the second best team in the country. I think they've got a tinker as a coach. I watched them at Washington, just manipulate, tinker, improve. Anyway, that's my take. Is that I think 4 weeks ago I may have felt differently. I think the offensive coach over the defensive culture. I like Bama.
So I'm with you. They are beating people on Saturday a lot. Staff-wise, like they got one of the best staffs in the country, offensively especially. So here's what's interesting about that. If you watch the LSU game last week, they're coming out of a bye. Theoretically, you should just be shot out of a cannon. We're ready to peak in November. They won 20-9, I think it was. If you watch the game, you saw how much meat was left on the bone offensively. You saw how much like just off the fingertips type explosive passes they missed on. And I think that is part 1 of the separation Saturday. You focus on precision and accuracy all week after a game like that. And then number 2, Oklahoma's real hallmark is they can shut you down running the ball. I'd almost feel more uncomfortable for Alabama if part of their offense was built on the ground game. They already don't do anything on the ground. Lesser teams have shut them down running the ball. Right. So what Oklahoma's built to take away, you can't take away from Bama because they already don't do it, and yet they still scale their passing game anyway. And the 2 other offenses that they've seen that can do through the air what Bama can are Ole Miss and Tennessee. And I think one of them threw for 319 and the other one threw for 380 or something like that against them. So it's going to be a real high-profile game. It'll be a good fight. I think Alabama's going to end up winning the thing by double digits in the end.
Yeah. Iowa-USC, let's talk about it. So Iowa can make things difficult for your pass game. As usual, well coached, have a handful of NFL bodies, above average offensive line. I think one of the things I noticed about Illinois, about Notre Dame, and Northwestern did it to a degree last week. You can run right at USC. Northwestern did it. There's things they've gotten better at. Their cornerback play, like with USC, you can see the coaching. And their offense now is a true walk-on freshman running back because they're all beat up. And it hasn't hurt their running game at all, which is remarkable. Jaden Maiava, most improved quarterback in college football. I just can't even believe what I'm watching. 2 years ago, I watched him at UNLV. I'm like, he's a runner. He didn't even throw it. Then last year at USC, I'm like, I don't like him throwing it, especially over the middle of the field. I don't trust him. Now I'm like, that's a second-round draft pick. That's a real quarterback. I think Iowa's a really tough matchup. I also think they play Oregon the next week. Chance to look ahead. Any chance in your eyes Iowa beats SC?
Sure, there is. I'm looking at a forecast, and we got heavy rain in LA Saturday. I don't know what's happening. So the only thing that changes, about the game that they played last week against Oregon is the venue at about 25 degrees, and that's your forecast for Saturday. So, you would think to yourself, oh, that heavily favors Iowa. Who knows? Maybe it does. I just know if I'm USC, I'm drawing heavily on the fact that I ran it for 220 plus against Michigan. I ran it for over 200 on the road against Nebraska. And I watched Oregon run it for 260 against Iowa last week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, are they going to run on us? Probably. Iowa runs the ball to a certain extent on everyone. But the difference is now we think we can run it. It's been proven that you can run it on them. And I mean, look, at some point, if you're going to exist and thrive in the Big Ten, you got to do what Oregon did last week. You got to win a Big Ten game. I thought the most impressive thing Oregon did was they played Iowa's game and beat Iowa playing Iowa's
Yeah.
game. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
going to drag you in there. The weather's not going to help already, but Iowa's going to drag you in there. You got to be able to come out of there cut up and bleeding all over the place, but holding a W because you're not going to finesse your way through the Big Ten. What you can do is you can hit a couple of explosive plays in the process of playing that style of ball. But I agree with you. Final score projection, I agree with you. Now, turnovers can be the difference there. So there's a lot higher variance when you play a condensed kind of game like that. I actually think Southern Cal is going to find a way to get the job done. If they don't, though, do you understand? You understand. I hope everyone else understands how big a hinge moment this is for Lincoln. Because if they win it, it's Super Bowl time in Eugene. It's playoff on the line, Big Ten stuff on the line. If they lose this Saturday, that's a 3-loss team, almost inevitably headed for a 4th loss.
Yeah.
At which point, you know what the noise is going to sound like around there.
Football season's here, and if you want to go to an NFL or college football game, Game Time is the place for you. The Game Time app just gives you the advantage back to you, the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. I love it. Easy to use. The Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price, 100%. So they even let you preview your seat on the app. That's special. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay every time. Take the guesswork out of buying professional football tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account. If you use the code Colin, COLIN, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code COLIN, $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Yeah, no, I've said this, I've said this. Once college football, the playoff is expanded to 12 teams. All these romantic rivalries are in doubt, and I got a lot of angry responses. I said I would reconsider the Notre Dame. I would go to Notre Dame if I was Jen Cohen, because what's interesting here, Josh, if they beat Iowa, and I think they will, I'm going to go 27, 26, 28, 27, and lose to Oregon, they would make the playoff had they not played Notre Dame. And if they'd stuck in Fresno, they'd have a close loss on the road to Illinois. And I think they'll be competitive against Oregon, although Oregon hits on a lot of big plays and USC gives up big plays. So it's kind of a weird matchup. But they would make the playoffs with 2 losses because they'd have enough impressive wins. So, my take on USC Notre Dame is Jen Cohen should go in and say, you need it more than we do. We're in the Big Ten. I don't need another cold weather opponent in November. We'll play you every other year. Has to be in September. We can start in Notre Dame, but I'm not playing you late. I'm not doing that. I'm going to squeeze you between Georgia Southern and Fresno State. I'm not playing you after Ohio State and before Oregon. Get lost. But it is interesting because I think USC is going to win, and I think they're going to be competitive against Oregon, although Oregon's receiving core may be healthier. But I think I told you this. Lincoln Riley is Matt LaFleur. I know he's smart. He's on the right side of the ball. He's good with quarterbacks, play designer, play caller. Gets a little prickly with the media. I don't know if he's a culture guy. I like everything else. Mm-hmm. I know he's smart. I know he played designs. I've watched every snap at USC. I know Lincoln's bright. Don't know if he's got that Vrabel, Harbaugh, Chris Peterson culture building thing. Not sure if he does, but I think they'll win it. Texas at Georgia. This just feels like Georgia. Arch Manning has played better. Georgia's not quite as dominant as 2 years ago. I think the whole NIL thing is given us some Texas Techs, and it's peeled back on the dominance of SEC teams at the top. I like Georgia. What say you?
I got to also just, before I talk about the game, man, the conference expansion stuff. specifically for the SEC. I don't really know that people fully appreciate what this has been like down here. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch Texas come into Athens, Georgia on a Saturday night? And the same time, you got one broadcast network having all these games, by the way. 4 hours earlier, you will have watched Oklahoma go into Alabama. And that used to be like once a decade out of conference stuff, not just conference rotation, just conference games. Really crazy, just in the best of ways. So if I were to have told you in July, and you don't know anything about the upcoming season, I just told you, all right, Colin, Texas, Georgia is going to be a big time game, second week of November. I'm guaranteeing you the game's going to come down to quarterback play. How would you have felt about that, edge-wise, in July? Because I think that's how the game boils down, and I don't think we're going to go the way on that answer that we would have in July unless we think the sample size from the last couple of games of Arch Manning is a sign that thing that you hope happens in week 1 is finally happening, but it's happening in week 12. Now, if it is, Texas can go in there because Texas pressures the quarterback way more than Georgia does. So Gunnar Stockton's got a bigger hill to climb here than Texas does and Arch Manning does. But if that thing that seems to happen every year in November with some player where he just finally finds his groove, if that's happening with Arch Manning, the most important thing in this game is tackles in space and yards after catch. I think it was Matt Vogel. I want to give proper credit. I think it was Matt Vogel I saw that put out a stat that these two quarterbacks are number 1 and number 2 in the league in passes behind the line of scrimmage, which stands to reason. They recruit great athletes. They want to get the ball to them quick, get it in space, make someone miss. So that's probably where this game gets decided. I just wonder to myself, I watched Texas get 2 shots at Georgia last year, and they get physically just bent twice.
Yeah.
Not supposed to happen. When you recruit and develop like Texas, it was a very, very big pride shot, I thought, for them. Yeah. And so, they're 11-3 in conference games since joining the league. 2 of the losses were last year to Georgia, and now they get another shot at them. And the reason I'm leaning Georgia in the game is I can make you a case for Texas. I just think at some point, as a staff, you got to show me. Like as the overall MO of a program, I know what Georgia and Kirby is. I never have to question that.
That's right.
It's crazy that you think to yourself, or I think to myself, this far into the Sark tenure, there's still a lot we haven't figured out about what Steve Sarkisian's Texas is. That's why nights like that are so important this weekend.
I think that's perfectly put. It's really interesting. Mac Brown's teams, I think, had a better identity. Sometimes Texas can be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
They can be pretty. I've said this. When USC and Texas played, I was at that game. That was the most beautiful college football game of all time. The sunset, the Rose Bowl, burnt orange, USC, the best-looking fans.
You had to be a 7 to even get a ticket to the game.
It was. Everything about the game was beautiful. It wasn't the most physical game. It was just beautiful sports. Reggie and Leinart and Vince. And I've said that before. Maybe it's because LA is a pretty town and in Austin is music and food. But I know exactly. One of the first things, the Packers right now are a broken team. And I'm like, what are they?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Sark's Texas team, and my take is they're really talented, but I'm not sure exactly what they are. And like Marcus Freeman takes over Notre Dame. An hour later, I'm like, oh, they're physical. This is going to be like an uglier version of Brian's teams. They're physical. They seek contact. The backs are Notre Dame has an absolute identity under Marcus Freeman. It is smart. I mean, they're always smart. Smart, physical, punishing. They want to run right between the tackles. It's yards after contact. It's fight for every yard. I don't know what Texas is.
Yeah.
Good, talented. I don't know what they are.
You know what's totally fair to say about them? The exact same thing you just said about Lincoln. To this point, it's fair to say the same thing about Sark. I love the dude to death. I actively pull for him. But there is a big difference. I mean, he's a clinician as a play caller, as an offensive mind. There are very few that could even hang in a conversation with him. But he's not the offensive coordinator alone. He's the head coach. And so, I'm looking at everything that trickles down from the top. And if we're asking that question this far in, look, maybe there's still some development that happens there. I could say the same thing about Lincoln. I know those guys are old relative to football minds, and they've been around a while. I mean, look, Saban didn't win his first national title until he was in his early 50s, and then
Right.
he won 7 of them. So it's not the craziest concept that guys may still be learning on the job a little bit.
No, I mean, I talked to Tom Telesco, was a GM for the Chargers for years and the Raiders briefly. And he said it's a benefit if in the NFL if you hire a head coach who's great schematically. He goes,
Yeah.
that's Shanahan and Andy. He goes, you're really hiring CEOs. Well, it's easier to be a CEO at 55 than 45. Like so much of, I mean, Texas is a pro job. I mean, especially now with NIL, it's like a pro job. I mean, you're dealing with, it's just a different ball game than even USC. Texas is bigger. And I think you're learning. I think it's like in life, everybody gets better. I remember Patrick Mahomes saying the light went on year 3, and you're like, you were the MVP year 2, and he's like, yeah, but everything slowed down in year 3. So I think that's I don't even think it's a criticism of Sark. I think it's a reality. Is he's just getting better at it.